Zero here, and welcome to my 2025 year-end review. Nah, who am I kidding? You're here for my hot take. Okay, Blueprints. My second most played game on Steam this year. I also can't recommend it, without some serious caveats. In the game, you play as Simon. Your mother's uncle just passed away and surprisingly bequeaths you with a family estate. The only catch is that you have to reach the 46th room of the 45-room mansion. As if that wasn't puzzling enough, most of the rooms reset every day, and you have to do the roguelite thing of picking one from a set of three every time you open a door. Pushing the roguelite theme further, you've got a limited amount of resources, like steps which are consumed every time you move between rooms, keys which are used to unlock chests and lock doors, the latter of which will become more and more frequent the deeper you go into the mansion, and gems which are required for certain rooms. There's also other resources like dice for rerolling rooms, and coins for purchasing in shops. You also get to find items that can do certain things. As expected from a roguelite, you probably won't have the resources to reach room 46 on your first try. Either you'll run out of steps, or locked doors and dead ends will stop you from progressing further. Your only way to proceed would be to call it a day. The next day begins, and you'll be back again at the entrance with 50 steps and no items. At least until you get the permanent upgrades that you also expect from a roguelike like this. Figuring out what rooms to pick and when to pick them forms a big part of getting to room 46. But they're usually not enough. And that's where the puzzles come in. Some puzzles are pretty straightforward. Solve this puzzle and you get gems or keys. Some puzzles have more significant outcomes, leading to the permanent upgrades that I mentioned. And some are even more significant. In fact, anything you can see can be a hint or part of a bigger puzzle. I'll stop here as going any further could be considered spoilers, but we can already see why I can't recommend this game to some gamers. Since everything can be a hint, the game wants you to take note of things that you encounter. And I mean in the literal sense. The game even directly suggests you keep a journal. In other words, if you're not in the mood to take notes, or if your first instinct when playing a game is to look for a walkthrough, just save your time and money and watch a playthrough instead. Maybe a glitchless speedrun to save even more time? But what if you actually enjoy taking notes? I'm still wary about recommending this game due to its problems. Problems that I won't spoil yet. But I've thought of two ways to play the game to get around them. First is the practical route. Set personal time limits. There would be two. Your hint threshold, say 20 hours, and the I give up threshold, maybe at 50 hours. You then play the game as intended, taking notes, avoiding spoilers, and generally just trying to solve the game on your own. But once you hit the hint threshold, you start looking up hints to help you solve puzzles. Then, far later down the line, you hit the I give up threshold, and you play with all the solutions at your disposal. Next is the ideal route, similar to my advice in the streaming Project Moon Games video. Here, I suggest you work on it as a group. Grab a bunch of friends who like puzzles but somehow still haven't played Blueprints. Make everyone promise not to look up spoilers, then set up a Discord server where all of you share your findings and theories there. And that's my advice for those who still have yet to play or reach room 46 of Blueprints. I'll explain the actual problems more in a bit, but they're technically spoilers, so I'm giving you a chance to exit the video or skip to the next chapter. To be clear, I won't spoil anything specific like giving hints to Room 46. It's gonna be a different type of spoiler. Before we talk about blueprints, let's briefly talk about the other puzzle game I played this year. The Root Trees Are Dead. Just as the title says, the game starts with the Root Tree sisters and their parents dying in a plane crash. The problem is, they're part of the filthy rich Root Tree family, and because of a quirk of how inheritance works in that family, the recently deceased assets must be redistributed among the remaining blood relatives. In the game, you're a genealogist tasked to fill out the entire family tree using 90s internet, looking for clues and connections through websites and library archives. Overall, the Root Trees Are Dead represent a more typical game structure. It's split into three parts: a tutorial section, then the main game, then finally the bonus for the Steam release, a much harder post game called Root Tree Mania. Other games follow this general structure. Sure, they may have more or less phases, but overall, most games will look like this. Blueprints doesn't. It's still split into three different phases. The journey to Room 46 is the first phase, then comes a mid game, and a late game. But they're not separated cleanly like this. Remember, everything you encounter can be part of a puzzle. So the mid and late games overlap with the early game, as some of the things you find could be for those phases and not part of the Room 46 quest. In other words, after reaching Room 46, you're left with all these breadcrumbs for the later game. A not so subtle hint to continue on and find out the secrets they hold. Taking the bait has its pros and cons. On the plus side, the mid game has, in my opinion, the best puzzles in the game. I'd even say that solving some of them on my own was much more rewarding than reaching Room 46. Downside is, it's a massive time sink. While the game does provide some shortcuts, you'll still end up doing a lot of busy work whenever you want to do something. Say you randomly thought of a solution to a puzzle while taking a shower. In order to test that solution, it can take 30 minutes, an hour, or even more to even get to that specific puzzle. Then you find out your solution was wrong, and the cycle repeats again. Repeats that a few dozen times, and you'll understand why I want you to set some personal time limits. Then there's the red herrings and moon logic. In my opinion, the quest for Room 46 is the best designed part of the game. Sure, you can still get unlucky with the RNG and take way longer to get the rooms you need, but there are multiple ways to get closer to Room 46 that, with a bit of patience and dedication, you're bound to find your way there. After that, however, things become more and more difficult. The mid-game still has puzzles with multiple ways to solve them, but you'll be given less clues and more red herrings to trip you up. By the late game, you'll be lucky to find a clue that isn't obtuse. And don't get me started on the moon logic. If I haven't driven home how tedious and frustrating Blueprints' mid to late game is, let's just say I'd rather stream LobCorp 100% again 3 times over than stream Blueprints 100% a single time. By now, it should be clear why I advise new players to go with these two routes. One lets you share the misery with others, and the other prevents you from wasting too much time. Don't be like me and set your hint time to 70 hours, and the I give up time to 100. And that's why I can't recommend Blueprints. Alright, channel update. This year I made 3 long form videos, 1 short, 2 review streams, and 1 full 8 episode playthrough stream series. But more importantly, I reached 1,000 subscribers. That's the only reason why I'm even making this video. And just for kicks, I applied for monetization. which somehow got approved quickly. Yay? On one hand, it's great that I can get a couple of bucks out of my videos. On the other hand, I admit that most of my videos are lacking in terms of quality, and getting paid for them doesn't feel right. As a compromise, only 3 videos are monetized for now. 2 of the videos I did this year, and that Bitburner stream episode one that somehow got 10,000 views. So this video isn't monetized. I also won't be activating super thanks and memberships until I reach the sub milestone that I have yet to set. Moving forward, I'll have to raise both the frequency and quality of the content on this channel. For the former, I'm planning to stream at least once a week, ideally twice. The main stream would be a long continuous series like this year's XCOM Apocalypse streams. I have some ideas what cozy game to stream, but right now I haven't decided yet. The extra streams would likely be demos, similar to last year's Halloween alternatives, or updates to games that I like. Despite my main content being Project Moon related, I have no plans of streaming any of the games soon. That means a Rowena lore playthrough will have to wait. As for regular videos, I already learned my lesson from the last video, so I won't be making any promises. Shorts, however, are necessary evil for a content creator nowadays, so I might dabble with posting random LobCorp and Rowena trivia when inspiration strikes. Now for the quality part, next year I'll be focusing on consistency. It's a pretty broad topic involving all sorts of stuff like tone, cadence, and loudness, but basically I want my videos to not sound wildly different. It's gonna take some time for me to find a good baseline, so don't expect me to do radical changes in the next few videos. And that's my state of the channel for 2025. Thanks again to all my subscribers, especially those who have been around since my earlier videos. The rest of the video are the obligatory best of 2025, and a section where I talk about the random stuff that I did this year. Let's start with a video game of the year. Limbus Company wins by default. Don't get me wrong, this was a great year for Limbus Company. But surely, a better game must have come out this year, right? Then I played Blueprints for far longer than I should have, and it pretty much killed off what little interest I had in games hyped up by both the industry and the gamers themselves. So yeah, apart from Blueprints, none of the frontrunners this year caught my interest enough to buy them. Clair Obscur? Not weird enough. I also wasn't interested in Baldur's Gate 3 last year, so this wasn't new. Silksong, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Hades 2. I may have jumped on the Blueprints bandwagon, but I'm not that big of a bandwagoner to jump in without trying Hollow Knight, KCD1, and Hades first. Arc Raiders. Coming from Tarkov, the game loop just looks a bit bland for my taste. That leaves me with 2 possible candidates: Limbus Company and Escape from Tarkov 1.0. Perhaps Tarkov might have won if the experience of finally escaping from the cursed region after 5 years felt more rewarding than all of Limbus Company's events this year combined. But since I spent all of my free time in November and early December on the previous video, I'm nowhere near escaping Tarkov. In the end, Limbus Company wins my Game of the Year by default. As for other games that I played this year, I've got a 1 hour 45 minute video on them that you can check out. As for games not on that video, I've already mentioned the Root Trees Are Dead. It didn't give me the same highs as Blueprints, but it didn't disappoint me in the long run either, so I'm actually rating it higher than the latter. Maybe that might change when I finally get to play Root 3 Mania? I don't know. You might have seen this weird outlier in my Steam replay image earlier. All the other stuff in there makes sense, but what's this game? It's Upload Labs, and it's just okay. It's a free-to-play idler, which explains why it's on my top 5 in terms of playtime despite not being that notable. I probably should have privated it before December so my Steam replay would have shown a game that deserves it more, like Auto Rogue. Moving on to the other best of categories. Movie of the Year, Anime of the Year. I don't watch movies or anime anymore, but I had to make an exception for one of my favorite anime of all time. Mononoke, the movie, Chapter 2, The Ashes of Rage. Wins both my movie and anime of the year by default. Not to be confused with the Ghibli movie, which, no question, is really good. It's just that this franchise is higher on my top anime list than that movie. If you haven't watched Mononoke yet, I strongly suggest checking it out. I'd start out with its original outing, the Bakeneko arc of the anthology series Ayakashi Samurai Horror Tales. But if that's not available in your region, you can also start with the 2007 series. Or just start with the first chapter of the Netflix movie series. This was sort of a soft reboot anyway. By the way, while the series centers around the supernatural, much of the time is spent on exploring the lives of the characters, both dead and the living. In short, this one's a slow burn. You might want to skip this one if you hate that type of media. Alright, I'll be sharing my brief thoughts about the new Netflix film series, so skip to the next chapter if you don't want minor spoilers. Well, that was certainly a choice. It's my reaction to this new series. Regarding the not reboot, adding lore such that there isn't only one Kusurayuri traveling around banishing Mononoke was certainly a choice. They get to recast the character without technically doing so, and go one step further and give us a glimpse of what other medicine sellers' personalities could be. Then there's the setting. From relatively mundane places, now we're in the secretive inner chambers of the Edo Castle. An odd choice, but this way we get to see scenarios that are pretty rare outside such a royal setting. I don't hate these choices, as in the end, they're still wonderful movies. And I still get to see the Mononoke formula that I love this series for. But I have yet to form strong opinions about these changes even after 2 movies. The weird change that I really like though is to bring in Iwasaki Tago for the music to take over from Takanashi Yasuharu. And that's just because he got to bring in Lotus Juice for a repeat of Overdrive. Overall, I highly recommend the new Mononoke movies. Had I watched other anime or movies this year, I believe Ashes of Rage would still put up a strong fight against them. The third movie will be out next year, and I'm really looking forward to how they'll close out the arc. For Manga of the Year, I'm still reading manga, so I've got more options compared to anime. So I've narrowed it down to these 3. Before I reveal them, I'll have to warn you that all of them have massive spoilers in their recent chapters. So if you're planning to open a new window to check them out, please start at the beginning. Sure, early chapter art is usually less refined, so you won't get a feel of a series' overall art quality, but at least you won't be spoiled. In no particular order, we have Kengan Omega, the continuation to Kengan Ashura. It's a martial arts manga set in a Japan where corporate disputes are resolved through underground fights. It's got a large cast of interesting characters, though I like it more for how it sits smack dab in the middle of the realism sliding scale, between the groundedness of straight sports manga and the high intensity fighting of action manga. Next one is Under Ninja, from the creator of the hit zombie series I Am a Hero. In this world, ninjas exist, but have been driven to the shadows after the Second World War. They're also all registered under the government and occasionally sent out to do wet work. This series starts out with some slice of life, ninja in the modern era shenanigans, but soon the titular under ninja slowly starts to bubble under the surface. Then weirder stuff happens. All in all, it's part mystery, part comedy and satire on ninja media, and part what the fuck is even happening. Then there's Urabaito, Tobo Kinshi. It's translated by the main scanlation group as Gray Part-Time Jobs, No Escape, though the Urabaito part has cheeky puns and connotations behind it that makes it tricky to translate. Gray Part-Time Jobs is fine though, as the series is all about part-time jobs that pay a ton of money for relatively little effort. The catch being that they involve dangerous supernatural situations. Thus, they exist in a gray zone between legal and illegal jobs, hence the danger being referred to as the gray. Usually, this is the part where in every story arc a new set of protagonists arrives, sign up for a great job, then die in horrible ways. Nope, the manga decided to be a bit more meta and subvert things, giving us protagonists with skills suited for the gray. One can smell danger, supernatural or otherwise, and the other is so headstrong that she practically has no fear. Oh, and yeah, both are in it only for the money. And my manga of the year of 2025 goes to Urabaito. A series around supernatural horror with strong meta elements. Who could have guessed it would be my top pick? Unlike Mononoke, I can't really talk about what happened in Urabaito in 2025 without heavy spoilers. So let's quickly wrap up my best of 2025 roundup with the song of the year. Chan Chan would be too predictable, so I'm gonna pick something no one would expect. APAB by Burial Goods. And here's my best of 2025. Now on to the other random stuff that happened to me this year. Finally got to try buldak. These spicy noodle challenge staples have been available at my local supermarket for a long time, but they were a bit too expensive to buy out of curiosity. Then a local Korean goods store had a noodle sale, so I bought a bunch of packs to try out. First impressions. It tastes like pain. Not spicy, just pain. And sugar. And maybe a hint of salt. I'm sure there are other flavors in there, but the painfully high level of heat overpowers all the other flavors aside from the sweetness. So yeah, I didn't like it. However, I understand why others might like it. Maybe they've always eaten this type of food, or maybe they got an extreme spice tolerance from somewhere else. And let's not ignore the existence of masochists. But this one's just not for me. I still finished it though. It's not like I have zero spice tolerance. I just don't like how much of a one-trick pony the noodles are. Even the cheese flavored other types don't seem to make much of a difference. To make them more tolerable, I found adding 150 grams of the most boring meat you can find, say cheap tuna or cooked minced chicken, dilutes the spices enough for me that I can actually taste other flavors. Letting them cool down before eating also helps. On the plus side, this experience made me appreciate local spicy instant noodles more. I used to ignore them because I also thought they tasted spicy and nothing else. But trying them again after eating buldak, I was surprised that you can actually taste the artificial flavoring along with the heat. And they're much, much cheaper. Long story short, super spicy Korean noodles, not for me. The usual spicy noodles like Shinramyun, they're fine, if I could find them at a deep discount. Another East Asian trend I tried this year, budget running shoes. Was that time again to replace my shoes, and I went with Xcept 2000 Kilometers 3.0 over the usual brands. Obviously, I didn't buy the 2000 kilometer claim, considering many shoes start to break down at just 200 kilometers, but the dirt cheap price tag meant that even if it only lasted that long, I'd have my money's worth. 8 months and 350 kilometers later, the outsole is barely wore down. To be fair, I'm only doing light 5K runs, but a shoe lasting this long without the outsole worn flat or starting to peel off is impressive for a budget trainer. No wonder most of the local counterfeit shoe stores goes down. Even they can't compete in terms of value. If you're a runner in a country where these Chinese brands are readily available, I strongly suggest trying them out. From a potentially shady consumer good that I can recommend, to the opposite, an outwardly legit piece of hardware that I want you to avoid. ROG Gladius 3 Wireless Aimpoint. On the surface, it's a decent wireless mouse. It isn't one of those high-performance ultralights, but it gets the job done and I only need to charge it once a week. And being ROG, you can replace the switches easily. Essential when your environment destroys switches within a year or two. So what's the catch? ROG hardware abuses Windows updates such that when you install updated drivers, it also installs their bloatware armory crate. I'm fine with it since I know how to disable services, but the mere fact that they're abusing the update pipeline like this makes me strongly discourage anyone from getting Asus ROG hardware, whether it's mice, keyboards, or anything else. As for the other notable hardware stuff I did in 2025, built myself an Arduino VU meter to help me with streaming. While I do look at my audio levels in OBS once in a while to make sure I'm speaking loud enough, they're a bit too small and I eventually stop looking at them. With this, I can just use the corner of my eye to see if I'm staying in the yellow. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad info out there on how to build these things, so I can't really point to a single resource if you want to try building one for yourself. However, there are signs you could use to get an idea if a resource is good or not. If it's using fast Fourier transforms to sample the analog audio data, that's good. If they don't use a clipping circuit to save your microcontroller from extreme voltages, that's bad. They aren't using a standard decibel formula, either 10 or 20 log base 10 of the ratio of the voltage to reference. It's not that bad, but expect inaccurate results. Anyway, if it isn't obvious, I still have to 3D print a case and stand for this VU meter, which lets me segue to the last topic, 3D printing. I really didn't get to do much this year in the 3D printing front. It eats up too much time and I'd rather spend it on this channel. But I did have a few milestones. I finally got to upgrade my old Ender 3 version 2 so I could confidently print PET-Chi. You could technically do it in stock, but you'd be wearing out your Bowden tube and might have trouble with bed adhesion. And I immediately got something out of it. The PET-Chi stand I made for my solar-powered weather station still hasn't warped after half a year of being under the sun. The other milestone is moving to Orca Slicer. It's not that big of a leap from Cura, but the updated feature set is nice. And that's my 2025 year in review. I promised something low effort in the last community post, so here it is. A video I made in a few days rather than a few months. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.